Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the Executive Cabinet Member Leaders Portfolio, held in the presence of spokespersons from other political groups at Bolton Council. The first item on the agenda is the monitoring of Executive Cabinet Members' decisions, which has been circulated. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Nick. I'm going to utter my famous 3 words, West Bolton Town Hall. I have to say, I've been discussing this now since February. We made some progress, and you may recall, Nick, that I did raise it again at the last leaders meeting in relation to some of the work which had started. We did have an email that the upper floor was being ripped out. And I did ask whether West Bolton members, all West Bolton members, could be kept informed. Could we have a meeting to explore some of the issues and also to get more nitty-gritty information? And I was promised that. And we're now into the 2nd week of July, and we have heard nothing. I think I'm trying to be fair, and that I've been reasonable about asking for information for this extremely important building in West Bolton. But I have to say, my patience is beginning to wear very thin. Either lack of information, I can understand that occasionally. Sometimes it's not available. But I have to say, I'm now getting to the stage where I'm not as charitable. And I think West Bolton members are being kept in the dark. I very rarely say that, but in this occasion, given the length of time and the fact that we have to constantly prod and poke to get moving or getting anything out of the system is, I have to say, unacceptable. And I know you've been very supportive, Nick, in getting things moving. Every time I've asked something, either at exec meeting or at Councillor Zamans in the past or at full council, you've been very supportive. However, I think there are certain things happening which don't actually support your efforts either. And I'm being polite about it. In other circumstances, I probably wouldn't be as polite. So I'd like to, again, call on your goodwill to politely push 1 or 2 people in the right direction. I have to make it quite clear, Nick, this is the last time I'll be polite about it. I really will.
Well, yeah, and I'm absolutely on your side on this. I was a little bit surprised. I was interested to hear what you're going to say, and I was a little bit surprised to hear what you said, because there's a meeting in my diary tomorrow at 1 p.m. Now, I've got to say, in the presence of everybody here who may have organised that meeting, I've just had a quick look through the tracker, and you do not appear to be on the invite list. The other West Bolton North and South members are on that list, so hence your question, and you're probably laughing rather than annoyed, and I'm sure when you calm down a bit, you might be annoyed, but you should have been invited to that meeting, Councillor Wilkinson.
Nick, with my blood pressure medication, I always have to laugh.
Yeah, please stay calm. So it is at 1 p.m. tomorrow. It's in my office, or there's the Teams link. Justin or Paul Whittingham's not here. Can somebody please get that link over to Councillor Wilkinson ASAP?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I will, thank you, Leader. Yes, Councillor Wilkinson, I will send you the invite. It came out of Paul Whittingham's diary, but I can't speak for Paul. I'm not sure it was a deliberate move to not include you. But yeah, as the Leader says, there is a meeting set up tomorrow. I think Phil Lamb and the team will be sort of giving people an update, and we'll have a bit of an update on potential interest from other parties as well. So it is in the diary. I'll speak to Paul, understand his motivation for not including you, but yeah. I'll forward the link to you now, so you got it in your diary.
I'll be charitable, Nick, and say mistakes happen.
Yeah, let's not get into the realms of conspiracy theory.
It will be the last time. And
I
there's someone
appreciate.
sat in this. I have to say, there's someone sat in this meeting. Probably understands where I'm coming from now.
I appreciate your response to that, David. It is clearly an error. You should very much have been invited, and obviously you are now invited. So I look forward to seeing you at that meeting, and hopefully we can get some really valid updates on that. Okay.
The invitation is winging its way to you now, sir.
Marvellous.
Right.
So
Thanks
wait
for
with
raising.
interest.
Thank you very much. If there's no further comments, note that item and move on to item 2, which is the aggregate monitoring report, final outturn 24-25. Is that Lisa? Yeah.
It is indeed, Leader. Thank you very much. I will now take you through the aggregate report, which is the final outturn report for 24-25. I'm not going to go through the whole report expecting that it's been read, but I will highlight points out. So the revenue position as at the end of the year was a deficit of £13 million, and this is what we were projecting throughout the whole of the financial year. The capital expenditure for the year was 69.4 million. All our prudential indicators were met and approved. We did move the general fund to 14.16 million, which is within the guidance at the Borough Treasurer, and I can confirm that all of the savings were realised at the £8.5 million. And Leader, I am happy to take any questions or comments on this particular report.
Thanks, Lisa. Any questions or comments from members? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thanks, Ed. Just in relation to the children's thing, I know this is being looked at by everybody across the patch, officers and members, etc. Are we actually looking seriously now at moving back into children's properties? This within the last couple of weeks, we've another 3 planning applications in West Orton. All of them West Orton South, actually. We're piling on top of the ones we've already got, and it's the same for everybody across the patch, where we just seem to have no control of where we are, what's happening, and the costs. I know some of these are out of town placements, but it just seems that it's almost the Wild West on relation to children's homes. And I think we need to seriously look at going back to where we were many years ago and had some real control over it and control over how kids are being looked after as well.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Am I okay to take that question?
Well, if you feel able to answer a question on national policy, but I'll have a go myself, Lisa.
I will keep it into Bolton's perspective and keep it very factual, Leader, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Without speaking on behalf of the DCS, we do have a lot of preventative actions in place, and there are a lot of GM schemes, programmes that are going live or will be going live over the next coming years. This is an absolute national problem. We have been given preventative grants as form of the national funding formulas, and it's something that Bolton takes extremely seriously, but within the realms of what we can actually control. So that's from a Bolton point of view, Leader.
I was just doing a quick Google search because I can never remember the name of the project, but there is an ongoing GM collaboration project, which we've spoke about before, which is about working together to best utilise in-house facilities. As you appreciate it, it's massive. The other, and you're not going to open door, and I think we do need legislative changes as well, because it's a market that's basically out of control, and it's extremely expensive, and so to do it in-house is better. There's a whole other issue around that, and that's about having our own adequate staffing resources as well. It's not just a case of opening a building. It needs to be adequately staffed by qualified social workers, etc. The other aspect that Lisa did touch on is the There's very clearly a big push from central government on prevention measures. This is the key word that's being used over and over in terms of saving shed loads of money in the future. Adult social care, as we know, is subject to a longer term review, but we have had additional money already for children's social care prevention. We know in 2010, including Sure Start centres, we were around £14 million that was just for this area. That went within 2 years to zero. So we had to use scarce council revenue resources to keep on top of it, hence the quite rapid rise in costs at the other end of the scale where prevention has not happened. We were up to 3.6 million for children's care prevention, because you remember we had we had a specific ring fence grant, and council last February added an additional revenue budget to that so we could double up. In the latest CSR, there's been another ring fence grant announced there. So I estimated we're on somewhere between 5 and 6 million for prevention now. Nowhere near the 14 million we were in 2010, but it's clearly moving in the right direction to cut out those massive costs at the other end of the scale, where we're pretty much firefighting the damage, and a lot of the damage has already been done to vulnerable young people. Graham, you want to come in on that?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I just wanted to just add a little bit of additional information. So you mentioned a scheme across GM, that would be Project Skyline, as it's named. So that's a GM-led proposal to set up some children's homes across GM authorities to bring some of the higher placements, residential placements, into a provision that's managed and created and designed by GM DCSs. So that is underway. There's around 5 properties have been purchased, and we're in the process across GM of scaling that up to provide some much needed support to children's services. I think the other thing I would just bring to light is obviously there is a current consultation underway by government, the Fair Funding Review, and one of the items that very much is focused on in that Fair Funding Review is the relative needs formulas that are used for children's social care. So I think there is a recognition that there is issues with the funding allocation for children's social care across the country. So obviously that consultation runs until the middle of August. So we'll be feeding back on that consultation, both as individual local authority and obviously as Greater Manchester Authority. So I think it is recognised that the issues around children's social care, the move to placing children in out of authority children's care homes, the excessive costs that we're seeing in this area, it is a national issue. Obviously, Bolton are suffering from the same issues as our neighbours and the other authorities around England. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks very much. Thanks for raising the issue, Councillor Wilkinson. Any further comments? If not, I'm happy to note that report. Item 3 is Treasury Management Q4 outturn. Lisa again? Yeah.
Yes, please. So this second report is the Treasury Management Report for Q4, and ECM are asked to note the performance of the prudential indicators and the contents of the report. I will note that report has been read and just highlight particular bits. So, for example, in 2.2.1, the external long-term borrowing has remained at £158 million, all based on the fixed rates. Moving through, we talk about the base rate and how that's changed over the past years and was at 4.75 in February. Moving through to capital expenditure, you'll note that our current borrowing of 158 is less than the council's treasury strategy. Moving through onto 2.7.1, you'll be able to see that we have a nice balance of fixed rates and variables for our debts. And in 2.7.3, you can see the profile of where those debts are taken over the past number of years. And Leader, I'm happy to take any questions or comments on this particular report.
Thanks, Lisa. Any questions or comments? If not, I will note that report.
Thank you very much, Leader.
Thank you. Item 4 is the annual digital report 24-25.
Thank you, Leader. That's me taking that one. And I've also got Richard Kenyon, our Head of Technology, here in case there are any particularly technical questions that members might have. So our annual digital report gives you a selection of highlights from a considerable amount of work that's been delivered over the last 12 months. It doesn't cover absolutely everything, and I can't talk about absolutely everything in the time we've got today. So please do have a browse of the detail at your leisure. So we're 4 years into the strategy and the programme, which aim to deliver wide-ranging improvements through digital transformation. And this report takes a retrospective look at the previous year and presents, as I said, just the highlights of the activity we've carried out. We're in the process of conducting a review of the strategy and the programme to reprioritise and align projects to the available resources and to our council plan priorities. And the digital strategy is also informed by the transformation strategy that we're currently developing. So our digital strategy will follow from that and should be ready to bring forward towards the end of this calendar year. We've streamlined our governance arrangements. We've incorporated what was the Digital Steering Committee into our recently established Transformation Board, and our digital team has become our Digital Programme Board. Our initial focus with the strategy and the programme was primarily internal, as we needed to direct resources to some key internal priorities. So things like exiting the Bolton Wigan partnership, establishing our tendering and establishing the new IT contract, and starting the delivery of our EVO programme. In terms of some of the more strategic achievements, we've achieved financial benefits in excess of £1.63 million since we started the programme, and that includes savings on mobile phones and email security. And in 24-25, we estimate that we've achieved around £579,000 of financial benefits. We're also contributing to climate change targets, so for example through paper reduction and reduction in mileage. And another key driver for us has been improving efficiency and access to our services. So for example, we have been creating lots of online forms and the ability to pay for services online, with over 25 processes digitised since 2021, such as planning and school appeals. And we've been developing a digital offer for family hubs as well, for those people who can't access those in person, as well as reducing paper usage. We've been exploring exciting developments on things like artificial intelligence through a pilot and through collaboration with GMCA. We've been sharing knowledge and expertise across GMCA members, and in particular the AI project has been helping us to deliver transactional functions to free up staff to help customers, so staff can be taken off those more mundane and straightforward tasks that AI can pick up, and that enables them to support customers who have more complex needs and requirements. We've also been developing we are developing a business case for further investment in that. In addition, we've had a significant number of digital service requests in 2024, so 75,000. And of those, 23,000 were submitted outside of normal working hours. So that really demonstrates the fact that many of our customers, not all of them, but many of them want to access our services at times that are convenient to them. And it also means that they're able to do lots of things themselves that we would have otherwise had to deploy staff to. And that's also resulted in less pressure on the contact centre. And we've seen an average wait time reduction of 8 minutes. One of the things that I know members are always really interested in is digital inclusion. We've been doing lots and lots of work with colleagues across the council to improve digital inclusion, both for our staff and for residents and businesses. The report provides lots of details of some of the excellent work being led by the Libraries and Museums Service and the Digital Employment and Skills team. It includes helping over 300 people to access the NHS app, get them set up on that, and a digital skills job club. And we provided 900 SIM cards to eligible residents as well. In terms of staff, we've enhanced our e-learning provision, so there's a lot of online training available for staff now that wasn't previously, and we've really developed our digital aiders offer, which is where colleagues provide peer support to each other to help each other out with digital challenges or queries. We continue to collaborate across GM through GMCA to maximise opportunities to share knowledge and work in a joined up way. And we'll continue to apply for grant funding for future work, both via GMCA and from national government. We still have challenges around capacity, and that's part of the driver for reviewing and streamlining the priorities within the digital strategy and programme. We feel like we need to focus in on doing less things better and quicker, and then we'll move on to the next things. In terms of a small selection of highlights from the report, we've been working hard on revamping the Community Information Directory, which makes it a lot easier for residents to find out information about where they can access services and support. We've been developing a data platform, which is all about moving data into the cloud to help us take evidence and data-led decisions about service delivery. We've been supporting the digital telephone switchover, which impacts on lots of our vulnerable residents, working closely with colleagues like Bolton at Home, partners like Bolton at Home, and other housing providers, and with the likes of BT and Virgin Media. And then we've started the delivery of our EVO programme, which everybody will be seeing evidence of coming up. One of the key drivers for the EVO programme is to make us fit for purpose for the 21st century and to save money and help us to work more efficiently. We've also, the Libraries and Museums and Digital Employment and Skills Services delivered a huge number of events and support mechanisms for residents. So we've had digital drop-ins. There is a digital lending library where residents can borrow kit if they don't have it themselves. And there's things like tea and internet sessions been going on. So we're really looking forward to developing that refreshed strategy and programme of work, and we'll bring that back to you later this year, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Very comprehensive. There's an awful lot going on there. Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the explanation to the report you provided. It looks like you're doing a great deal of work in the background to bring us into the modern world. However, following on from the Leader's answer to my question that he very kindly forwarded me an answer to, and I did read it, I still have councillor-related gripes over our services. It's really pleasing that finally we're going to get to be able to print out at home. Eventually, that's good, but I still don't understand how copying and pasting from a council email is a security risk. Because if somebody wanted to be that nefarious, they just simply forward the email to another external email address and copy and paste it there. It is an inconvenience and it doesn't improve our security at all. So again, I'd like officers to impart, as a part of the internal review or whatever you're doing, is look at this, because it is an absolute mess. Screenshotting something is not it's not going to install a virus within our systems by taking a screenshot that you can send on to residents if it's important. Copying and pasting into a wider email that you want to forward to another resident is not going to, or onto other councillors or officers, is not going to inflict a virus within our systems. I really don't understand the answer that I got. I understand it, but I don't understand the rationale. because all we need to do is forward it. It's just an extra step we now need to take. Forward it to our private emails, copy and paste from there, and still get the same information out if we want it to be that nefarious. And as I'm sure you will know, every email that is sent or received is stored on our servers, and every imprint has a cost. It might only be a fraction of a penny, but you multiply that across the entire borough, and every email has a cost in storage. So again, by sending and receiving things to yourself needlessly, increases that cost because of storage facilities. I just wish that would be looked at better, possibly speak to those. And this isn't just me, because when I put the motion forward, the amount of councillors across the cabinet came like, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. This is a pain in the backside. So if you could kind of look into this again and allow us just that a screenshot, copy and paste stuff, that would be great. But I am pleased that we were able to print off at home. Thank you.
Who would like to answer? Richard?
I suppose that would fall into my realm, Councillor Peel. Thank you, Councillor Grant, for the question again. There are some things that are outside of our control as well to consider in that. So we have to adhere to certain guidelines put forward by NCSC, the National Centre for Cybersecurity, is a government body. They put certain security controls forward as recommendations in order to maintain compliance. So that and actually the copy paste function is specified in there. As an example, I think you should be able to copy paste from one email within Microsoft Outlook to another email within a Microsoft Outlook. The control should intervene when you try to copy and paste it to a different application, as it's an easy egress route, for example, to copy paste stuff to social media or to other places where it may not be appropriate to send. If you forward an email outside the council, then there's an audit trace that you have dispatched that information outside the council. If you copy and paste it into, say, WhatsApp, there's no record of that egress. So it's also an audit trail purpose. You in your question there, you invited us to have another look at it. So again, we can revisit that again. In fact, it's good practice annually to revisit all of our security controls, and we have our upcoming public sector network reaccreditation later on in July. So we will be anyway in any case conducting our annual review of those controls.
Okay, thanks for that, Richard. So please, Councillor Grant, feed in obviously to this annual review directly to Richard and see if things can improve there. Councillor Muslim.
Thank you, Leader. So just on the data intelligence theme, it's good that 2.1.6 talking about the progress that's been made on data and to an evidence-informed organisation, and I suppose it's important because that was it plays a key part in many of the areas of the vision that was approved at Cabinet on Monday. And I suppose I'm just trying to understand now where we are at the moment in terms of collaboration and how different departments can access different data, I suppose, to better make decisions. So it's not just about us getting data from residents and things like that, but how are we using data better between, say, I don't think of an example now, but I don't know, library services and I don't know, children's services to see where the footfall is and how we encourage more people to go into the library or other things of that nature, where actually if departments better understood data that was available across the organisation, we could then make better decisions on a whole host of areas. It's probably a bad example I gave, but we'll roll with it. So just to understand where we're up to at the moment and how we can sort of make that a bit more reality going forward. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah.
Shall I make a start, and then I think Richard can probably talk a little bit more in detail about the data platform project. So We are certainly looking at all of those things in terms of how we can join up the data that we have available to us. Obviously, a key consideration within that is data protection legislation, GDPR, and whether we're actually allowed to share that information. We are working with GM colleagues also to try and make it easier where it's appropriate to share information and create data sharing agreements that we can all adapt easily to facilitate that. But obviously with that caveat that we need to be very careful about sharing appropriate information in the right way or not. In terms of the project that we're doing, it's still quite early on. It's a pilot project to understand where this might be able to take us. I'll let Richard come in terms of a bit more detail on where that's going, but that's absolutely about bringing together data in the cloud that we will then be able to use much more effectively and efficiently to draw down that information to help us shape service delivery and design. Richard, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I can just very briefly. The project that's currently underway aims to extract massive amounts of potential. So we have, it's not that as a council we don't hold data, it's that we don't necessarily have the ability to pull it together and cross-link it and understand what A means to B means to C. So if you take a social care case management system, for example, there's no connection that says, oh, well, this family has these needs and this household is behind on its tax payments or something like that. And so the ambition is a really, really good one. As Nikki alluded to, there's challenges with data protection and GDPR and so on. So we need to make sure we have proper processing justification in place every time we process and compare data. In order to do this in a fairly, let's say, a local authority focused way with a controlled budget and not an unlimited spend, we're looking at what tooling we've already got available to us at a reasonable price. We're currently running a proof of value exercise with one such platform, and we're looking at where we can pull data from one system in and how that system works. It's essentially a learning exercise for the technical colleagues in my team, for colleagues who sit inside the services that consume this data, to understand how this works and what this means. And there's a next stage to that. We can then start to bring in more data from more sources. So it's probably another few months before we've got the best out of that learning from the initial phase, and then we're probably looking at another 18 months before we have some tangible output to bring back to committee.
Thank you, and if I may, Leader. So it was really interesting the example as well that you gave, Richard, about sort of the tax and people what their needs are. And I suppose I completely understand the data protection issues that we've got around that as well. I suppose would there be options to say we could identify it, but it's restricted in some sense. So you could say we could identify that there's X amount of families, say using your example, X amount of families that have those needs and are behind on their tax, but then it's only accessible when there's like you'd have to request access because there is actually a need to know it. But could we still draw those distinctions and those links, because that'd still be helpful even if you didn't know individuals, so you might not need to. But if you use that then to spot a trend, would that be feasible, having it more restricted?
Yeah, the tooling certainly has the potential to anonymize and aggregate data to make it useful in that way. Part of the learning I described is also we need to learn how the best way to implement our own internal controls to make sure we do that safely and effectively, and we don't fall foul of any incidents. And of course, we'll take learning from our peers in GM and from the wider network of local authorities in the country. So that's all possible, and again, that is what we're aiming to tease out from this current proof of value project.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, I think the ability for us to harness data better will have huge implications for us as a local authority, not just in terms of cost saving, but also outcomes for residents as well. So yeah, great work. Thank you.
Thanks. It's a huge growing area, and in some ways, the data protection legislation is kind of behind in terms of the fast growing massive amounts of data, and the fact that unless there's data sharing protocols in place, and especially between various public sector organisations, then services actually decline. And I'm minded at this point just to note that the Dame Louise Casey review into CSE also flagged this up, the lack of data sharing protocols between councils and GM police led directly to catastrophic results for many people. So these things do need to modernise whilst protecting people's privacy. But the whole thing does need a dose of looking at. I know there's a lot of work going on across Greater Manchester on this very subject, because I share the Greater Manchester Information Board, which is attempting to unravel some of these restrictions. Okay, thank you. I'm Councillor Wilkinson.
Yeah, thanks very much, Nick. I think when we had Councillor Zaman's meeting last night, and we were talking about one of the employment schemes, use of data to get to people who do need help and support, I think it is useful. I mean, there's all ranges of things we can use. Can I just first of all say, I think it's an absolutely cracking report, this. I mean, normally technology, it's a bit boring kind of stuff. And I'm not a tech person, but I find this a very interesting report. And I'd like to, say well done to everybody to try and put a bit of life into what is a very technical subject around things about inclusion, not just about performance and getting value for money and all that, but we're actually trying to help people in health, employment, etc., and families. I think it's really good, and it's a pity we can't, in a way, put more meat on the bones for this. I know it's a corporate scrutiny kind of thing. But the one concern I do have reading this, there's a hell of a lot of work going into this, and a lot of people are putting a lot of time, effort to deliver these outcomes. But there's always a but, I don't know. In 221, that concerns me, is that officers are taking more on and more on and more on. And like a lot of good people in any organisation, people take things on and take things on and take things on because there's not enough capacity. And I have that little worry about the sheer volume of all this activity, that we don't have enough people. And we've seen that in planning and other things like that, what proposals are to address that, because obviously IT and all the things which go with it can drive such big changes, not just money wise, but for people. And I wouldn't like us to see it as being slowed down in any shape or form because we haven't got the people. And I know it's a high skill area to do all these kind of things, but that little paragraph there just rings a little alarm bell for me. Thanks.
Thanks, David. I'll come in on this one. One of the things that people get very concerned with the developments of technology, and AI in particular, is job displacement, because technology, and we've seen this up, I mean, this is not new. This has happened over centuries. But the other side of the coin is when things change, when technology becomes a bigger part of our lives, there are new jobs created. And you look at Andrew Williamson's role as Assistant Director Transformation, I think he was appointed about 10 years ago, something like that. That role never existed. Richard's role, Nicky's role, you go back in years, these roles didn't exist. And so as the council changes the way it delivers services for people through better use of technology, we've then got to improve that capacity in order to do that. You're absolutely right. Jobs will actually disappear throughout society over the coming decades, as they did in the previous decades, but new jobs will be created. So you're absolutely right, Councillor Wilkinson. It is something we're very much aware of and keeping an eye on it. Thanks very much. We'll note that report. And the final item is the Victory Centre proposed lease. Justin.
Thank you, Leader. I'm here today to bring forward the the potential lease to on Victory Centre, Victory Street on Troy Old Road, or just off Troy Old Road in Queen's Park and Central. The property was marketed for a commercial lease, open market value, back end of last year, around November time. The marketing period also included an opportunity to see if we could get some community benefit in that property, which had previously served the community. We didn't have any commercial interest, but we certainly had some interest from local community groups. We went through a selection process, a sifting process based on the merits of different, and assessed the merits of the different bids. And we found we identified what we thought was a successful bidder, a company or an organisation called Aspiring Futures, who are an organisation who help vulnerable women from minority communities in the local area. Their proposal was the best proposal financially, but also serves the community and provides a very valuable service in that community to the people of Queen's Park and Central, and also surrounding boroughs as well, surrounding wards as well. They would be looking to take a 4-year lease, which is technically a short form lease. So, and they would pay a market rent, which would, but we will give them an incentive to fit out and get the property up and running, and subject to annual increases to bring the property from £3,500 per annum up to the market rent of £7,000 per annum over 4 years. We assessed the property, we assessed the bid, and we were going to bring this forward probably early in the year, but with different changes to ECM, and then we had a cabinet reshuffle, and also a sort of we had the in-housing as well as corporate property. So the team parked it for the time being, but we're back on track now. We want to try and get this moving forward. We've had a significant interest from various other groups. So we were mindful, and I think the previous ECM, Councillor Howarth, was mindful that this would need to probably have a bit of a open debate about sort of the potential uses here, because it's a key location in a community that hasn't got many assets that serve the community. Our recommendation is for a 4-year lease to the Aspiring Futures. We've communicated with them, and they're happy to proceed. The property was marketed through our agents, Fletcher's CRE, for a period of 4 or 5 weeks, and they have been and they've taken the interest and obviously provided that marketing for us. They've communicated with the various interested parties as well. So we'd like to. It's technically it's just a lease for 4 years, and it is business as usual. It falls under my normal delegated authority, but for the purposes of being open and transparent and the interest that we've had, we thought we would come to ECM just to sort of discuss it in the open. The report gives our reasoning behind our decision, and my corporate property team, who have done the assessment, have made the recommendation to me that we proceed with this tenant. So I'd just like to, I'm raising this awareness, and I'd like to consult with the leader and ECM just to confirm that we're happy to proceed on this basis.
Thanks for that, Justin. And I know you mentioned that it is under the scheme of delegation, but I think it is probably right for openness, transparency, that this is a recorded meeting. The one thing that I would raise here, and increasingly keep raising this issue, is whether it's a lease arrangements or a community asset transfer. We had one at the over in West Dorton. We need to be mindful about those who aren't successful, and I think our entire approach really needs to alter in terms of helping multiple groups. Sometimes it's like square pegs and round holes, but there are assets across the borough. Some are council, some are Bolton homes, some are community, some are faith organisations, and there are groups. And it's about fitting them and matching them together, and also having buildings that are multi-use, that serve a number of different groups. There's one in my ward called the Fusion. It has an anchor tenants, but it has about 6 or 7 different groups who use it. And I think that's the model we should really be moving towards. In terms of this particular decision, I absolutely get it. It's best value in terms of finance, but also a very strong social value offer there as well. Councillor Wilkinson, did you want to come in?
Just in relation to the point you've made, Nick, which I
Yeah.
totally agree with. When we had the Washacre one, which is some time ago now, when Sue was exec member, that's one of the things we asked for when we were in the the exec member meeting is, oh, all these people want a space, they want to do things. Oh, you can actually say to them, sorry, you didn't succeed this time, but because all these groups are doing a fantastic job in their communities across Bolton. It's how we can actually, as an organisation, as the council, try and help them in some shape or form. And I'm glad we're still talking about it, but I'm still worried that it's like well over 2 years ago when we actually talked about that in Sue's meeting. It doesn't seem to have really got embedded into the nitty-gritty of the paperwork when we're dealing with these schemes.
I'm going to ask Justin to give us an update, but absolutely agree with you. We have to remember it's not just council buildings we're talking about. We're in partnership with a number of organisations, and one of the examples I raised at a previous budget is maximising the use of our libraries, sweating the assets a lot more than we actually do. If we've got a perfectly acceptable library building and it's only open 3 days a week and it's open 5 hours, what is it doing for the rest of the time? I'd also throw schools into it as well, definitely places of worship and other organisations like health centres, Bolton at home. There are lots of things that we can really do to sweat assets. Just before we move on, in terms of this particular example then, Justin, I'm quite keen to get the Naval Association some assistance. So just bearing in mind what I've just said, can you update us on any current thinking on that?
Yeah, obviously we were waiting really until we made the formal decision. We hadn't technically made the formal decision before we were going to turn and decline any interest down. Our agent, Fletcher's, had communicated with the other parties to say we were still going through the selection process. With regard to the Royal Naval Association, they do require a premises with a bar, somewhere where the veterans and former officers, former servicemen can get together on a social basis. And we do actually have, within the Albert halls, we've got the Albert's bar downstairs, which isn't being utilised at the moment, and there may be an opportunity to do something with them. So there's certainly, within our gift, we do have a bar in the town centre, which we could probably have a conversation with them about. The Victory Centre, I know that it previously had the Armed Forces team in there as well, I think at one point, and it's adjacent to the Reform Club there. But I would say if they want to have a conversation about maybe opening up the Albert's Bar, maybe we could look into that for them. We have also got, in terms of going back to Sir Councillor Wilkinson's comment about shared facilities and using facilities. The Victory Centre is only very small. It's 792 square feet, so it's only like pretty much a single room with it's not a very big facility. But we do have other community assets which we are in the process of preparing for lease over the next coming weeks. So there's in Halliwell, Kersley, and other locations as well, Little Lever and potentially Farnworth as well. So these are probably slightly bigger and probably more opportunity to share as well. So we're looking really to sort of try and see if we can share facilities. We work across in corporate property. We work across the Strategic Estates Group as well with our NHS partners, and we're looking to sort of partner up on a few things in terms of delivering services. We've got the new family hubs as well, which the government have announced, and we're also looking at over the next year as well. We are bringing more and more properties internal in terms of the corporate landlord model. And I think libraries were mentioned. I think Leader mentioned that libraries. We do have a couple of libraries now within our portfolio. So there's an opportunity maybe for us as a service, corporate property, to look and explore that idea. Previously, they've been with library services and they're responsible for their own budget and their own staffing and things. They're not open 24/7. They're open, some of them are only open 3 days a week and irregular hours. So trying to sort of get the staffing and the resource to have them May 7 to 7 to 7, for example, so they could be opened up in the morning and used for classes, or could be used in the evening for groups. Then there may be an opportunity to do that. It comes down to funding. It comes down to resource. So if there is a demand and there's a way of funding it, then we'll certainly explore that and look into doing that, and if we can utilise our assets. As I said, we've got 3 libraries. The Central Library in the town, but also we've got West Horton Library, which is in the process of being refurbished, and we've got Horwich Library as well, which is under our stewardship now as of April, I think. So there's certainly things we can be supporting the communities on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, it's good to see that work is progressing. I mean, just because library buildings might be under the library service rather than corporate property shouldn't be an obstacle to that either. And I really do like the idea of utilising the Albert Bar. I think that's a very good idea. Okay, thanks very much for comments on that. So I'm happy to approve that report and the appropriate delegation to officers. Thanks everybody for your attendance at the meeting, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.